I would like to ask the Minister for Home Affairs, pursuant to his answer in the House of Keys on 15th of June 2020, how many times members of the Independent Monitoring Board made physical visits to the Isle of Man prison in each month from January to the end of May this year, and how other contact with prisoners was facilitated when the pandemic restrictions prevented physical visits.
On the Minister for Home Affairs, Mr. Caine, to reply.
Thank you, Mr. President. The number of general visits by the Independent Monitoring Board each month from January to the end of May 2020 was as follows. January, 8 visits. February, 6 visits. March, 5 visits. April, no visits. May, no visits. On the 23rd of March, following correspondence from the prison governor advising of the risk of COVID-19 in a prison setting, the chairman of the Independent Monitoring Board informed the prison governor that the IMB would not be conducting general visits for the foreseeable future, given the potential health risks to prisoners and board members. Mr. President, as in the name, the IMB is independent and may visit the prison at any time without notice and without permission. This continues to be the case. All board members receive a comprehensive report every weekday on the operational aspects of the prison, including complaints and incidents. The Monday report covers the weekend. All prisoners have access to forms placed on their wing which allow them to make a complaint to the IMB, which are collected weekly and forwarded to the chair of the IMB. A notice to prisoners was published to inform prisoners of the facility and has been reissued. No complaints have been received during this period, and this is believed because of the communication with the Prisoners' Council and has been open to frequent eliminating the need to alleviate the complaints. Every prisoner has received an update on a daily basis. The Prisoners' Council is reminded at every meeting that they can contact the IMB directly about any issue. All prisoners are advised on reception about the IMB and its role. Thank you, Mr. President.
Supplementary question, Mrs. Caine.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I thank the Minister for his openness in saying that for the whole of April and May there have been no physical visits by the Independent Monitoring Board. And although forms are available for prisoners to complete, can he state then that no prisoner has had any contact, they've not filled in the forms, they've had no contact, virtually or in person, with any member of the Independent Monitoring Board? And that being the case, is he content that the Independent Monitoring Board are accessible to prisoners and are doing their job of monitoring the prison?
Mr. Caine, Minister, to reply.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think in my answer it said that you've got the Prisoners' Council, they have access to the IMB, there has been no restrictions on the IMB, they have a system in place at the prison so they can talk these issues through. So that is the situation, Mr. President. No complaints have been issued.
Supplementary question, Mr. Hooper.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Can the Minister please advise when the IMB were first informed of the arrangements for prisoners in respect of the COVID restrictions? And can he also advise if when the IMB raised their rationale for not visiting the prison were because of the risks of transmission, whether the prison governor offered any alternative means of contact or inspection for the IMB?
Reply, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President. My answer, the 23rd of March followed correspondence from the prison governor advising the risks of the COVID-19, and it was the Independent Monitoring Board that then replied. I'll find what date they responded to the prison regarding they wouldn't be taking any foreseeable future visits. If the honourable member could just repeat the second part of his question.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, actually, the first part of the question was when were the members of the IMB informed of the new restrictions that will be placed on prisoners as a result of COVID, not the risk itself. When were they informed of the arrangements that were put in place? And the second part of the question was on the IMB's response saying, thank you for advising us of the risk, we won't be undertaking any physical visits. What efforts were made by the prison governor to reach out to the IMB and say what alternative arrangements could be made to enable them to continue facilitating visits during the coronavirus period?
Thank you, Mr. President. In my response, I did say that they are in regular correspondence with the prison governor, so there is regular daily correspondence regarding the prison visits. It was a decision made by the IMB, and as I said previously, they can at any time have access to the prison. So there's nothing that is stopping the IMB to have access to the prison or the governor.
Honourable Member for Middle, Mr. Shimmons.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd just like to ask the Minister, for those prisoners who were confined to their cells for 24 hours a day, how are they able to access the IMB?
Reply, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President. As in my answer, it was advised to all prisoners on reception about how they can access the IMB.
The last supplementary, Mrs. Caine.
Thank you, Mr. President. Draw the Minister's attention to the response he gave on the 15th of May when he said the IMB does have access to the prison at this time, when in fact having access and actually making use of it and visiting the prison are two very different things. So I'm concerned that that implied that there were continuing visits, and would he accept that at that point he knew that there were not? And also, can he give us some reassurance today, have the physical visits by the Independent Monitoring Board now resumed at the prison?
Eugene.
Thank you, Mr. President. Sorry, there must be a piece missing here. There is no restrictions on the IMB at any time visiting the prison. So even during the COVID period, the Independent Monitoring Board could still visit the prison. They were not prohibited from visiting the prison. Mr. President, I shall check with the prisoner governor on the date where the IMB may feel that they feel able to return to those visits.
I'll allow Mrs. Barber to come in. Final question.
Thank you, Mr. President. Would the Minister agree with me that the Independent Monitoring Board is by its very virtue and nature independent, and therefore, rather than directing these questions to the Minister for Home Affairs, in fact, the question should be directed to the Chair of the Independent Monitoring Board, who will be able to confirm exactly what the Minister has said today?
Minister to reply.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, I would agree, but if it would assist the Honourable Member, I will find the answer to it.